What is up, everybody? It is JT Sports. I am back to you guys with another video, and I'm here with my Baltimore Ravens 2021 wide receiver preview. Going to be going over the current wide receivers on the Ravens roster. Before I get into it, make sure that you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel because I upload NFL videos and college football videos daily. I'm trying to get to 15,000 subscribers before the start of this year's NFL season, so make sure that you guys subscribe. Help me reach my 15K subscriber goal. Also share the video on your social media platforms with your friends, family, and acquaintances, and help spread the word of JT Sports. Now, looking at this wide receiver room for the Ravens, this is probably the youngest group of wide receivers in the NFL. You have two rookies in Rashod, Bateman, Tylan, Wallace. You still have Miles Boykin, Marquise Brown, who are fairly young. And with this being one of the youngest wide receiver groups in the NFL, I think the guy I want to start off with is Sammy Watkins, because I feel like he is going to have a big role on this team. I feel like signing Sammy Watkins was probably one of the more underrated signings from free agency. Now, when you look at Watkins, this is a guy who has played on Kansas City for the last couple of years, and he has been fairly productive. Now, the numbers don't show how good he has been from Kansas City. Like, when he's had his number called, he has stepped up. He has had some big performances. He normally starts off the year pretty hot, but then he kind of falls off in the later middle part of the year due to injuries. And you also got to remember, Kansas City had a lot of talented wide receivers. They have one of the best receiving rooms in all of the NFL. So Sammy Watkins kind of had to split targets between Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman. You also had the split receptions with Travis Kelce as well. So there were a lot of guys who were taking away receptions and targets from Sammy Watkins. So with him going to Baltimore, he definitely has the opportunity to kind of be the road dog, if you want to say that, for this receiver room. And I think one thing that Baltimore has been lacking with the young receiving core that they have is like a leader in that locker room who can lead these young talented wide receivers that they have, because I feel like there is a lot of talent in this receiver room. It just hasn't been met yet. I still think Miles Boykin has a good amount of potential. Marquise Brown has shown flashes. You still have Devin Duvernay, James Proche. We still want to see a little bit more out of those guys, but this is not a untalented group of wide receivers, not one bit. The talent definitely is there. The potential definitely is there for all these guys. It's just that you're going to have a lot of growing pains, and I think when you have wide receivers that are young that end up having growing pains, it's good to have a leader in that locker room, a guy who's been around the block for a couple of years that can pick those young guys up and help those guys head in the right direction when it comes to the development. So I think Sammy Watkins is going to have not only a big role in the locker room, but I also think he can produce on the field as well. Remember, when Sammy Watkins got his number called in Kansas City, he stepped up and he was sharing targets with a lot of great guys there. So with him having more of an opportunity to kind of be like their number one or number two option for the next couple of years, I think that's going to help out this passing attack, which is something that has desperately needed some help over the last couple of seasons, because we know this run game is really good, but it's all going to come down to how can Greg Roman develop this passing game. But Greg Roman can't do it on his own. These wide receivers got to improve, and I definitely think signing Sammy Watkins is going to be a big boost, because Sammy Watkins is actually pretty good. Like, I know a lot of people are going to look at the stats, but like I mentioned, when you're sharing targets with Kelce and Hill and Mecole Hardman, like, you're not going to have the opportunity to have like this amazing stat line. So I think Sammy Watkins could have a pretty big impact on this Ravens offense this year. Now we have Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown had a pretty solid year, 58 receptions, 769 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. He had his fair share of ups and downs. You had a couple of good games. You also had some really bad games where he struggled with drops, struggled with inconsistency. And the reason for that is because we really found out what Marquise Brown was. And I've been telling people this for the last couple of years. Marquise Brown is a really good Robin. He is a good number 2 option. He's not a Batman. He's not a guy who you're going to bring in and say, hey, you're going to become our number 1. And we saw that because when he first came into the league his rookie year, he didn't really do a lot of action underneath per se. A lot of his targets came down the field off deep shots. Now this year he was asked to do a lot more in the middle of the field underneath, and it didn't really work out all that well for him. So bringing in Sammy Watkins, I think that's going to help Marquise Brown out a lot, because now he's not going to have to be that main focal point from that wide receiver spot. And I also think that Marquise Brown, now that he could be viewed upon as that number 2 option, I think that's going to allow him to flourish in what he's able to do best, which is running down the field, catching those deep post routes, those deep streak routes down the sideline. I never really viewed Marquise Brown as a guy who could end up being a true number 1, catching a lot of passes underneath in the middle of the field, moving the chains, because that's not what Marquise Brown is. Marquise Brown is at his best when he's able to use his speed to stretch the field vertically, not underneath. Now, I expect Marquise Brown to have a solid year. I don't think he'll break 1,000 yards. He'll probably be around 800, 900. He probably could have 7 touchdowns this year. He'll probably catch around the same volume of passes this year that he caught last year. Probably be around that 50, 60 range this season. So if Marquise Brown, I think he'll still continue to be what he was last year, this year. And now we move on to guys like Miles Boykin. Now, Miles Boykin was a pretty big disappointment last year when you look at how excited Ravens fans were to see him perform this year. My God, G-Vision or NMD TV was really high on Miles Boykin, and he didn't really live up to the expectations that a lot of Ravens fans had for Miles Boykin. This was a guy who, coming out of college, was supposed to be what Chase Claypool was last year. He was supposed to be able to stretch the field. He was a big physical target who also could be really good inside the red zone. Didn't really do all that much. Now, he did catch 4 touchdown passes for 266 receiving yards and 19 catches, but definitely not the season that a lot of Ravens fans had envisioned for Miles Boykin in 2020. Now, this year, he's going to have a lot of competition if he wants to be able to get on the field. You got to compete with Rashod, Bateman, Tylan, Wallace, James Proche, and Devin Duvernay. So it's going to remain to be seen what he does throughout training camp and preseason, if he's going to be able to get a good amount of playing time this upcoming year, because it could look like he could be the odd man out of this rotation in Baltimore. Now you got James Proche and Devin Duvernay. I think these are more of slot guys who you put in the slot, and they'll probably give you some talent there when it comes to their return ability on kick return and punt return or whatnot. Now, I do feel like these two could become pretty solid options in that slot if they're able to continue to develop. Now, I want to see what James Proche does throughout preseason, because I'm really high on James Proche, especially when he was coming out of college a year back. So I think James Proche, I want to see more out of him. I also think Devin Duvernay could be pretty solid as well from that slot spot. So I think we could see James Proche, Devin Duvernay probably have a role as that slot receiver in Baltimore. Now we move on to the 2 rookie wide receivers who I like a lot, and Rashod Bateman and Tylan Wallace. When you look at Rashod Bateman, this guy is a freak. He plays bigger than what he may be shown on paper. Like on paper, I think he's only like 190 pounds, like 6'2" or something like that. But when you watch him play, this guy plays like he's 6'5", 6'6". He's a physical wide receiver who also has speed to stretch the field. Now, he's not a burner per se, but he definitely has enough that he can definitely pose some problems for opposing cornerbacks. And when this guy gets the ball in his hands, he's really good after the catch as well. I think he could be in for a pretty solid rookie year, because I think Baltimore is probably going to try to get him involved really early, like how they did Marquise Brown his rookie year. So I think Rashod Bateman could have a really good rookie year. Now, I don't think he'll have like a Justin Jefferson like rookie season, but in terms of what you expect from rookie wide receivers, I think he probably could be around a guy who probably has around 40 targets, probably catches 6 touchdowns, and has 700 receiving yards. I think that would be a pretty solid starting point for Rashod Bateman. Now, you got Tylan Wallace, another rookie wide receiver. You got him in the 4th round out of Oklahoma State. I thought that was a pretty big steal for Baltimore, because now you essentially drafted 2 potential #1 wide receivers in this past year's draft. I felt like Tylan Wallace should have went round 2, but somehow he fell to the 4th round. He's a pretty physical wide receiver in his own right. He's also really good after the catch as well. Now, he's not as polished as Rashod Bateman. I think Rashod Bateman is a pretty solid route runner. Tylan Wallace does need to improve that area of his game, but I definitely feel like we could see Tylan Wallace and Rashod Bateman both get a significant amount of playing time this year. Then you have the other wide receivers who a lot of people probably think are going to be dark horses to make the roster: Benjamin Victor, Devin Gray, Jalen Moore, and Deon Cain, which Deon Cain spent a couple of he's bounced around. He started out with the Colts, spent a little bit of time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Deon Cain could end up making a roster. Like I said, these are dark horses, but if I had to choose one of these 4 guys who had the best chance to make the roster, probably would be Deon Cain. So this is it for my Baltimore Ravens 2021 wide receiver preview. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. Who do you guys think is going to end up breaking out in this wide receiver room for Baltimore? Do you guys think it could be Sammy Watkins, James Proche, Rashod Bateman, or Tylan Wallace who end up stepping up this year? Do you guys feel like Marquise Brown can end up becoming the #1 wide receiver and exceeding everybody's expectations? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content, and thanks for watching.